These scary true crime cases have disturbing backstories that make for an unsettling mix of hope and despair. Although the crimes are now solved cases, their unexpected endings are oftentimes as unbelievable as the mystery itself. Number 5. Shioma Gray, a 15-year-old high school student from Ventura, California, had met 19-year-old Andrew Joshua Tafoya the year prior. In March of 2007, her mother had him arrested for having unlawful relations with a minor. 9 months later, a regular school day would soon become a real horror story come to life when her mother went to pick her up from school, only to find her classmates hadn't seen her all day. Andrew quickly became a prime suspect in this possible crime. Surveillance footage showed a criminal caught on camera pulling up at the school in a stolen vehicle. The crime became a true mystery when investigators found evidence of the same car crossing the Mexican border at around 1:20 p.m. that day. Shioma had left with Andrew of her own will. However, because she was just 15 and he was 20, this was a criminal case of felony kidnapping. What to them was true romance was a shockingly scary story for Shioma's parents, who feared their daughter was being brainwashed. The case went unsolved for years until 2010, when a private investigator looked into the cold case files and reportedly found the stolen car along with their new address in Mexico. Not only were they still together, but they were now married. Shioma was giving snorkeling lessons at a vacation resort, and Andrew was serving at a restaurant. In October of 2011, when the now 19-year-old Shioma and 24-year-old Andrew returned to the United States voluntarily, her family pressed criminal charges and Andrew was accused of concealing a minor from their parents. Shioma asked the judge for leniency at his trial and subsequent conviction. In 2012, he was sentenced to 2 years in jail. Today, according to their social media posts, Shioma and Andrew are still married, with 2 children. The true crime community continues to debate whether this story was a tale of true love or a scary kidnapping case. Number 4. Bobby and Christy Baskin, ages 7 and 8, went missing from Murfreesboro, Tennessee on March 1, 1989. Their prime suspects were their grandparents. Previously, upon court order, the children had been surrendered to their grandparents based on allegations of unfit parenting. The judge ordered the children returned in March, but instead, their grandparents became the center of a criminal investigation when they fled with the children. In a 1990 episode of Unsolved Mysteries, the parents explained that they had left the kids with their grandparents while they and their youngest son traveled to Louisville, Kentucky for work, only to have them vanish. The strange case went unsolved until 2009, exactly 20 years later, when Marvin Maple, the children's grandfather, had apparently confided in a few friends the disturbing backstory of how he had kidnapped his own grandkids. The authorities were notified, and at age 73, he was arrested. The Baskins flew out to California to meet their children, now aged 35 and 36, and that's when their unbelievable true story grew even stranger. Bobby and Christy, who now went by John and Jennifer Bunting, had no interest in meeting their biological family. In 2017, 8 years after the story first broke, John decided to speak out to defend his grandparents, the people who, in his eyes, had always cared for him. John was not willing to share the specifics of the real-life horror stories he says he experienced at the hands of his parents, only that his grandparents offered he and his sister a choice: go back with their parents or go into hiding and start a new life under different identities. John says he was fully aware the whole time that they were in hiding, and that he never once wanted to return to his biological parents. He says that there has never been and never will be a reunion. With their scary stories now public and their strange cases finally solved, he and Jennifer feel free for the first time. Number 3. Former actress Sandra Stratton was in her 20s and couch surfing in California when she began to stay with 46-year-old Paul Constantinescu. who introduced addiction to her life. Paul, a man with many criminal convictions, one day called her family to brag about getting their daughter hooked and under his control. Various horror stories raced through her parents' minds as contact became less frequent. Eventually, Satara confessed that Paul had taken control of her cell phone. She then mysteriously stopped speaking or visiting her family at all. These unsettling events are what made her mother travel to California to solve the mystery of what had happened. As her mother pleaded with detectives to open an investigation, the crime became a true horror story. Police detectives were unable to solve the case until March of 2012, when the mystery solved itself in an unexpected ending. Satara was found in bad shape at a Los Angeles area hospital with an unbelievable crime story to tell. She was dropped off by Paul, who then fled the scene. She would tell crime investigators about the darkest moments of where she had been in recent months. Paul had been keeping her against her will, and she told scary story after scary story of how he had stayed one step ahead of investigators at all times by shuffling her around seedy motels, at one point literally keeping her hidden in a hole in the wall. On March 15th, with police circling, her disturbing story came to an unexpected ending after she finally convinced Paul to drop her off at the hospital. Because she was an adult and was listed as voluntarily missing, it's unclear if he was ever criminally charged in her case. Satara was now free from a terrifying relationship, but sadly, she was never able to get entirely free from addiction. In 2017, at age 29, she passed away unexpectedly. Number 2. In 1993, Luanne E Bowers ran away from home, leaving behind a shocking confession note about getting married at the age of 16. In 2009, she resurfaced over a decade later with a true horror story that's most unbelievable. Although she has refused to confess much information to criminal investigators, Luanne, now 33, is known to have 5 children with Sinhu Johnson, her uncle by marriage. The two were located in an impoverished Pennsylvania city, where Sinhu collected scrap metal to survive. However, Luanne's case was far from solved, for her discovery revealed a greater crime with far more disturbing backstory than her initial strange disappearance. The couple's 5 children, aged 2 through 13, had been kept hidden from the world in a squalid row house without proper care. Despite living in a populated area, their neighbors confessed to having no idea about the children living next door without heat, electricity, or running water. Luanne told investigators that she didn't realize the events were disturbing enough to be considered a criminal case worthy of police investigation, and that she had kept the children in secret for their own good. Detectives learned that Luanne and Sinhu had created their own strange belief system for more than 70 religions. This led detectives to learn of many unusual stories in which Luanne was often walking around town, concealing her face with a veil and speaking into a handheld radio. In a 2013 interview, Sinhu, who had been held in custody for more than 2.5 years, said that they had not committed a crime. While in custody, Sinhu was diagnosed with a serious mental disorder, which he chose not to take psychiatric medication for. Luanne and Sinhu were both sentenced to 23 months, followed by 2 years of probation. Number 1. In May of 2013, a woman frantically waved her arm through a padlocked screen door at 2207 Seymour Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio, while screaming for help. The terrified woman told a neighbor that she was Amanda Berry and that she had been trapped in the house in a dark and disturbing case that had gone unsolved for more than a decade prior. Inside the home, crime scene investigators found 3 other missing people: Michelle Knight, Gina De Jesus, and Amanda's 6-year-old daughter. Each had their own scary stories to tell of Ariel Castro, their captor. This scary person was trusted by each of them prior to their kidnappings. In 2002, 21-year-old Michelle Knight had gotten lost on her way to a social services appointment to discuss the custody status of her daughter. Ariel offered her a ride, and because she knew his daughter, she accepted. She noticed the passenger door had no handle. Ariel drove her in the wrong direction from her appointment and told her an untrue story about a puppy that he had at his home to give to her young son. She went inside his house and stayed there against her will for 11 long years. Investigators assumed she had gone missing of her own accord. There was not an extensive effort to help locate her. The following year, Amanda Berry went missing just days before her 17th birthday. She had been working a shift at Burger King when Ariel Castro offered her a ride. And like Michelle's horror story, she accepted because she knew his daughter. Detectives did not open a crime investigation at first because they believed she was likely a runaway case. A week after she vanished, her mother got a mysterious phone call from a scary person who said, "I have Amanda. She's fine and will be coming home in a couple of days." The call was traced to Amanda's own cell phone. And this backstory was enough evidence to convince investigators that they were dealing with a criminal abduction case. The third and final woman Ariel took was 14-year-old Gina De Jesus while walking home from a school one afternoon in April of 2004. Ariel told Gina that a friend was looking for her and she got into the car. Her disappearance was suspicious, but police did not immediately link the crime to the disappearance of Amanda, and certainly not to the unsolved case of Michelle. For the next decade, they were kept restrained in various rooms of the house. Instead of birthdays, their captors celebrated their abduction days, and he would sometimes leave their doors open to tempt the woman to freedom so that he could recapture and horrify them further. By her own count, Michelle became pregnant at least 5 times. Unlike Michelle, Amanda carried a pregnancy to term and gave birth to a daughter. In 2013, when her daughter was 6, Amanda ran to the door, which was really left unlocked on accident this time, and not as a trick. Amanda's daughter had grown up in a true horror story, having never known real life outside of the house until they were rescued. On June 7, 2013, Ariel was arrested on 329 charges. In September of that year, he took his own life in prison. Today, the women he terrorized live free and independent lives. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future videos. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.